Welcome. Of course, I'm Randy May, President of the Free State Foundation, and we're very, very honored to have with us today FCC Commissioner Olivia Trusty to deliver an important address. And in just a moment, I'm going to give her a proper introduction. But first, I want to take just a minute to say this. We're here in the First Amendment lounge, and not by some mere coincidence. Some of you know that I've chosen this room in the past for FSF events. All things relatively equal here at the Press Club, I like the idea of holding a Free State Foundation event in the First Amendment room because I consider defending free speech and securing First Amendment rights to be a key component of the Free State Foundation's mission. And if you follow our work, you're aware of that. Of course, the First Amendment intersects in important ways with the FCC, but today I want to talk not about how that works, but about the Free State Foundation. And I want to say this clearly, and especially, and even more so now in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder. In my view, it's incumbent upon all of us to do all we can to encourage and foster respectful debate and to be tolerant of opposing viewpoints, and to be willing to listen to them and consider them. From the Free State Foundation's founding in 2006, we've always tried to model behavior that encourages civil discourse among those with differing perspectives. Regulars here know that even though I truly disagree with them on many issues, public knowledge's Chris Lewis and Harold Feld, whom I consider friends, have been among our most frequent guests at our annual conferences each year. So I pledge to you that we'll continue to respect a diversity of perspectives going forward, even while we adhere to our fundamental principles of protecting and promoting free markets, free speech, and the rule of law. Now, I want to introduce Commissioner Trusty. I know I said a moment ago I was going to give her a proper introduction, but because I had the opportunity to get a sneak peek at her remarks just a little while ago, I know she's going to relate some of the key details of her biography, and I don't want to steal her thunder. In any event, you have her bio on the table, and of course it's on the FCC website as well. So instead, I just want to say this by way of introduction. We all know that Olivia Trusty was universally recognized to be one of the most knowledgeable, most savvy, hardest working, and most respected staff members on the Hill. Note, I didn't say in the telecom or defense areas. I said on the Hill, across the Hill. There's a reason that even those senators that happened to vote against her confirmation were at pains, seemed to me at great pains, to point out that that was for extraneous reasons, not having anything to do with her qualifications, integrity, or so forth. Oh, so there's one other thing that I want to say about Commissioner Trusty by way of introduction. If you look at her bio, you'll see that she happened to attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Carolina.
Here, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, yes.
I didn't know that until after the invitation that was extended, of course. You know, I happen to be a double dookie. No, I did know that. So what I want to say is that for someone who did attend the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to be invited to a Free State Foundation event, there's a very high bar, and she easily passed that, of course. Before turning it over to Commissioner Trusty, I just want to remind you to tweet away. I hope you will. Feel free to tweet. It's hashtag FSF Olivia Trusty. That's on your sheets as well. So with that, join me in giving a warm welcome to Commissioner Olivia Trusty, please.
Well, thank you for that very, very kind introduction. Go Heels. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Free State Foundation and Randy May for the warm welcome. I have long admired Free State's work to advance free markets, limited government, and the rule of law, principles that have shaped America's prosperity for generations. Through your research, events, and thoughtful engagement with policymakers, you have helped ensure that communications policies encourage innovation, investment, and competition in an ever-evolving and dynamic marketplace. Those are exactly the principles we need to support today's new golden age of America, where our communications networks are the most advanced, secure, and widely available in the world, and where every American has the tools to thrive in the digital age. Right now, we are at a unique convergence point. Policy, technology, and market forces are aligning in ways that can accelerate innovation and investment at a pace we have not seen in decades. The principles championed by the Free State Foundation, freedom, competition, and accountability, will determine whether this moment delivers on its promise. With that in mind, the ideas I'll share with you today are shaped by my own journey. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, both the official version and a few things you probably won't find in my bio. So some of you may have already read my official bio on the FCC's website. FCC Commissioner, former congressional staffer with a career spanning both public service and the private sector. Prior to joining the commission, I served as a professional staff member on the U.S. Senate Committee on Armed Services under Chairman Roger Wicker of Mississippi. Before that, I was a policy director on the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee. And before I made my way to the Senate, I was a professional staff member on the House Energy and Commerce Committee and a legislative assistant to Congressman Bob Latta of Ohio. I began my career in Washington, D.C. in the private sector, learning early on how business realities intersect with policy decisions. But I'll share a few things you may not know about me. First, I am a former gymnast, and for reasons I can't quite explain, I have a personal rule. I must do a handstand in every new place that I visit. I have handstand photos in front of the Opera House in Sydney, Australia, on top of the Badlands in South Dakota, outside the U.S. Embassy in South Korea, in front of the Kenai River in Alaska, in Dubrovnik, Croatia, at the site of King's Landing, where Game of Thrones was filmed, and yes, even inside FCC headquarters. But I won't tell you if that was during office hours. Second, I play the piano, but I will never, ever, ever play publicly. I can handle a tough confirmation hearing in Congress, but a Mozart recital, that is where I draw the line. Third, I genuinely love yard work, especially mowing my own lawn. It's one of those few times that I can step away from screens and get some fresh air. There's something about the steady rhythm of mowing. It's strangely relaxing, and more than once, I have solved a policy problem somewhere between the front yard and the back fence. And fourth, I am a firm believer in getting my steps every day. Colleagues at the FCC have often spotted me speed walking the halls on various floors in between meetings throughout the day. Back when I worked on the Hill, I'd regularly walk the grounds for exercise, and more than once, a feisty fox decided to chase after me. I like to think it was just helping me keep pace. But these quirks remind me that we all bring something deeply personal to our work: habits, histories, hobbies, and human experiences that shape how we lead, how we listen, and how we serve. When it comes to my path into communications law and policy, it was anything but straight. I did not grow up dreaming about Section 230 debates or spectrum allocation. I actually came to Washington, D.C. to be a lobbyist, and, I'll admit it, to make a lot of money. But something happened. In my first private sector job, I had a mentor who would regularly discuss the history of the FCC with me and the importance of universal service principles. When I visited the company's territory in the Midwest, I saw the Universal Service Fund in action, expanding connectivity in rural America, creating jobs, and supporting local economies. I also saw how quickly the market can change. Technological advancements and shifting consumer preferences compelled industry players to innovate constantly, offering new communication services to meet evolving demands. Those experiences cemented my understanding that communications networks are essential to economic prosperity and individual opportunity, and that this sector is dynamic in a way few others are. From the early days of broadband expansion to today's AI-driven applications, it's never dull. Now, in my early days on the Hill, I started to grasp how even seemingly small regulatory choices could ripple across communities, raising cost, stalling innovation, or conversely, opening the floodgates for progress. Over time, I became animated by one core question: how can we ensure that the communications networks of tomorrow serve all Americans, not just some, not just the loudest or the wealthiest, or those in metropolitan areas, but everyone? A lot of what has prepared me for this role does not come from the Code of Federal Regulations, any particular legislation I worked on, or the massive archive of regulatory filings submitted to the FCC over decades, but from my life experience. I grew up in a big family. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. He is very spoiled. But we don't agree on everything. In fact, some family dinners could rival a congressional hearing in terms of passionate debate. But we also learned early that unity matters, that compromise is essential, and that listening, really listening, can turn disagreement into progress. This family foundation has shaped my political temperament. It has taught me to seek common ground, even when it's hard, to absorb perspectives before dismissing them, and to never mistake volume for value. As I mentioned, professionally, I've had the privilege of serving in the private sector and in both the House and Senate, and on the Commerce and Armed Services committees. Each role has challenged me to think differently, to wrestle with diverse policy issues, and to navigate competing priorities. At the FCC, I see the same need for pragmatism, collaboration, and a steady focus on results. In Congress, I watched broadband policy become increasingly central to everything else: education, defense, public health, agriculture, and much more. I realized that telecom policy is not just another issue. It is the issue that enables every other issue to function in the digital age. So what am I working toward at the FCC? 3 priorities will guide my work. 1, universal connectivity. 2, public safety and national security. And 3, restoring U.S. leadership in next-generation technologies. Now, these goals have a long history in communications policy, but I believe we need to move with a sense of urgency when applying them to today's communications landscape. Universal connectivity has been the Commission's core responsibility since its creation. I mentioned how learning about the history of the FCC and the importance of universal service helped lead me into telecom policy. That objective is right there in the first provision of the Communications Act, establishing the FCC to, quote, make available so far as possible to all the people of the United States a rapid, efficient, nationwide, and worldwide wire and radio communication service with adequate facilities at reasonable charges, unquote. So what does that mean today? It means that every American, no matter their zip code, should have access to reliable, affordable broadband. Connectivity is no longer a luxury. It is the foundation for education, healthcare, economic development, and civic engagement. Just last month, I visited the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson, Mississippi. UMMC is doing groundbreaking work, and not just within its hospital walls, but across the entire state, using telehealth to reach patients in some of the most rural areas of Mississippi. I spoke with doctors who are treating chronic illnesses, managing high-risk pregnancies, and delivering mental health care all over video, but only if the broadband holds. As one provider explained to me, a drop signal in the Delta isn't just annoying, it can be dangerous. Without broadband, their telehealth programs simply don't work. A drop signal in a remote town isn't just an inconvenience. It could delay a diagnosis, interrupt a mental health visit, or force a patient to drive for hours for care they could have received at home. I also had the privilege of visiting Alaska, the last frontier, early in my tenure as an FCC commissioner. Broadband connectivity is truly a game changer in rural America, and nowhere is that more evident than in Alaska, where the rugged landscapes and vast distances make closing the digital divide especially challenging. My time touring the state underscored just how transformative broadband can be for remote communities. Now, for many Alaskans, they remain on the unconnected side of the digital divide. In conversations with industry leaders and federal, state, local, and tribal partners, one message came through loud and clear. There is still significant work ahead to bring remote Alaska into the 21st century digital economy. And I look forward to working with my colleagues at the FCC to help make that a reality. These conversations in Mississippi and Alaska underscored what I already believed. Connectivity is a health issue, it is a workforce issue, and it's a public safety issue, which is why it's critical that we bring greater transparency and accountability to our funding mechanisms. Dollars must flow where they are needed most, not where they are easiest to administer. It's also why using all the available tools to reduce regulatory barriers that hinder broadband deployment is so important. This will help ensure that all Americans get faster access to reliable, modern networks. And it also ensures that when federal support is needed, those funds will be used both efficiently and effectively. My second priority is safeguarding the communications networks that underpin our economic and national security. This includes protecting consumers from scams, strengthening our emergency communication systems, and securing our networks from foreign threats. A secure communication system is a safe one. Now, the importance of this goal has only grown with time. Think about how reliant we have become on real-time alerts, from natural disasters to Amber Alerts and other emergencies. Our systems must not only be fast, but trusted. I've also prioritized working closely with our national security partners to ensure we stay ahead of emerging threats, whether that's foreign infrastructure components or AI-generated misinformation from illegal robocalls. I also believe the FCC plays a critical role in national security, and I commend FCC Chairman Carr for establishing a National Security Council within the agency. We provide critical oversight of the networks that carry our most sensitive information, from military communications to personal data. Engaging in greater collaboration with our intelligence and homeland security partners and developing stronger tools to defend our networks from threats will enhance our ability to respond when foreign actors seek to undermine our networks. The bottom line is that national security in the digital age means more than troops and tanks, although troops and tanks are essential, and I thank our warfighters for their bravery and their service. But in the digital age, it also means network resilience, secure supply chains, and the ability to mitigate threats before they become crises. Finally, we must restore and strengthen America's leadership in the technologies that will define the next century: 5G, 6G, Wi-Fi 7, satellite broadband, artificial intelligence, and beyond. America should set the global standard. This means creating a regulatory environment that encourages investment, innovation, and competition. Encouraging technological innovation has been an FCC responsibility since its formation. From the start, the Act has directed the FCC to, quote, study new uses for radio, provide for experimental uses of frequencies, and generally encourage the larger and more effective use of radio in the public interest, unquote. Promoting innovation and U.S. technological leadership has likely never been more important than it is today. Other nations, particularly China, are racing to shape global standards and dominate emerging communications infrastructure. The United States cannot afford to sit on the sidelines or slow walk progress. I believe the FCC must be a catalyst and not a constraint for innovation. That means acting thoughtfully, but with urgency, to streamline approvals, reduce regulatory friction, and embrace a pro-growth posture. Losing ground to adversarial nations who view communications infrastructure as geopolitical leverage may set us back indefinitely. Our leadership isn't inevitable, it is earned. If we want America to lead in 6G, AI, and space-based networks, we must make spectrum available for commercial use, support research and development, incentivize private capital, and ensure American values are incorporated into international standards. At the FCC, I see 4 pillars that will define the success of these priorities: infrastructure, innovation, trust, and partnerships. Infrastructure means ensuring that high-speed broadband reaches every home, business, and community, not just the urban centers, but in rural areas and underserved neighborhoods. Innovation means creating regulatory certainty that encourages private sector investment, fosters competition, accelerates the deployment of new technologies, and promotes U.S. leadership abroad. Trust means safeguarding privacy, security, and reliability so that Americans can feel confident in the networks they depend on every day. And partnerships means consistent collaboration among federal agencies, Congress, United States continues to set the global standard for connectivity, security, and innovation. The Free State Foundation has long argued that an open and competitive marketplace delivers better results than top-down control. I agree. We've seen time and time again that when companies have the freedom to innovate and the incentive to compete, consumers benefit from better service, lower prices, and more choices. When I think about what's at stake, I think about the rest of the world. Other countries, both allies and adversaries, are racing to lead in critical areas like spectrum allocation, AI integration into networks, and next-generation satellite constellations. Nations like China are pouring resources in their telecom sectors, not only to drive economic growth, but to expand their geopolitical influence. If we want America to remain the world's communication leader, we cannot slow down, hesitate, or overregulate. Now, stepping back for a moment, coming from Capitol Hill, I saw a lot of what happened at the FCC, but not all of it. Since coming to the Commission in June, what surprised me most is the technical complexity of the work being done by our bureaus and offices every single day. Whether it's resolving interference disputes, managing orbital debris, or working to ensure the predictability and sustainability of universal service, these professionals are doing work that touches every American, often without them ever knowing it. They are the invisible backbone of the digital age. And the other surprise? How quickly things can move when there's a clear agenda. Chairman Carr has set a bold and focused course with his Build America agenda, and I'm grateful to be a part of that momentum driving investment, innovation, and connectivity nationwide. This agenda is not just about building infrastructure. It's about building confidence that America can still lead in the technologies that will define the next century. It's about making sure that the smallest town to the busiest port, every part of this country has the tools to connect, compete, and win. From streamlining permitting for broadband deployment to ensuring spectrum policies keep pace with demand, the Build America agenda recognizes that connectivity is the foundation for participation in the modern economy and the nation's global competitiveness. We are at a point where transformative technologies, 5G, 6G, AI, satellite broadband, and next-generation fiber are converging in ways that can dramatically improve productivity, opportunity, and quality of life. To fully realize this potential, our policies must be forward-looking, grounded in evidence, and driven by the needs of the people we serve. Now, one thing that's not surprising is how great it is to work at the FCC. It is an honor of a lifetime to be nominated by the President of the United States, our nation's chief executive, to serve during his second term. I believe this period will be remembered as the new golden age of America because President Trump's leadership and what we will accomplish at the FCC under Chairman Carr's leadership and the Commission's Build America agenda. My mission is simple: to serve the American people faithfully and fully, to do the work, to get results, and to ensure the benefits of connectivity reach everyone, everywhere. Yes, the commissioners at the FCC have different perspectives. We do not always vote the same way, but we have found a remarkable spirit of respect and public-mindedness in our work. Yes, there are lively debates, but there's also mutual respect and a shared purpose. We agree that America must lead in technology, that spectrum should be used efficiently, that rural communities matter, and that consumers deserve transparency and protection. In my experience, disagreement handled with civility often leads to better policy, to sharper thinking, and to decisions that stand the test of time. In closing, I will say this: communications networks are not just pipes and signals. They are the lifelines of our communities, our economy, and our republic. When they are strong, we are strong. When they are secure, we are safe. And when we invest in the future, we invest in every student, every patient, every entrepreneur, and every American who needs a digital bridge to their next opportunity. So as we look ahead, my message is simple. We are standing at the threshold of a new golden age of communications. The choices we make today about spectrum, infrastructure, competition, and security will define our nation's trajectory for decades. If we get this right, we will empower every American to participate fully in the digital economy, strengthen our national security, and preserve the principles of freedom and opportunity that make our country so unique. And I believe we will get this right, because I see the ingenuity of our entrepreneurs, the dedication of our public servants, and the passion of organizations like the Free State Foundation. This is our moment to build, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. And if, along the way, I happen to find a good spot for a handstand, you can bet I'll take it. Thank you so much to the Free State Foundation for the work that you do and for inviting me to share my vision today. Thank you all so much.
Commissioner Trusty, I bet if you did a handstand right here, that we could make it go viral. It would be good. Are you up? No. No. Okay.
Can I just tell a quick story?
Yes.
I had in my speech to do a handstand at FCC headquarters. That was not true until this morning, where I had to close my door and do a handstand. So anyway, just so you know, I did do one this morning, and that's in the record books.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a story that fitting of George Washington. You can never, ever tell a lie. And in just a moment or two, Commissioner Trusty has agreed to take a few short questions. But first, I want to thank you again. That was a marvelous, important speech, and we appreciate it. There was a lot there, of course, but one thing that I think was really important that caught my ear was when you said you like to mow lawns, that mowing your lawn gives great pleasure. And I do too, by the way. Don't say anything, Laurie. And I don't want to try to ingratiate myself with you here in front of all these people, but I've got a lawn, really, that if you ever get tired of yours, you could have at it. A couple just housekeeping things. Should have done it earlier, but I want to thank Kathy Baker, our events coordinator here, and my wife, Laurie, who also always plays an important role in helping with these events. So could you join with me in thanking Laurie and Kathy? Sometimes I can make Laurie cry when I try, but I'm not going to do it. Okay. And I want to do one other thing. I mentioned earlier about respecting diversity of opinion and friends with different views and so forth. I just want to recognize one person that's here. I know there are others of you too, but a very old friend of mine, a dear friend, Bob Branson, is here, right over there. And Bob is head, as many of you know, of MMTC, and he's been someone else who's appeared at a number of our events, and I'm glad you're here with us today. Okay, now what we're going to do now, in just a moment, Commissioner Trusty is going to take a few questions, and after that, then Mike O'Reilly and Jeff Wesley are going to offer some reactions to what to Commissioner Trusty's address, and she still has a microphone, and she could offer any rebuttals or her own reactions if she wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and just introduce Mike and Jeff. And, I'm going to say what I do many times here. You've got these bios, so I'm not going to go through their bios. Mike O'Reilly, of course, is a former commissioner as well at the commission. And Mike, like Commissioner Trusty, and I don't believe she'll mind me saying this, Mike had a very distinguished career on the Hill before he became a commissioner as well, serving in many important positions. When I've done this in the past, I've noted they would seem to be increasingly important as he went along, and then he of course, to my way of thinking, was a really important commissioner as well. The only other thing I'm going to say about Mike is he's an adjunct senior fellow here at the Free State Foundation, and one of the things that he does is host this video cast called TMT with Mike O'Reilly there's some really interesting conversations that Mike has with just a variety of people that are in our ecosystem, as we say. I think Joe Rogan's watching out for Mike creeping up on him. So be sure and try and catch those video cast of Mike. We're going to have another one drop tomorrow, as they say, in that forum. So we're delighted that both of them are here as well. Okay, now, what I want to do, Commissioner Trusty has agreed to answer a few short questions. I say short because we've got this other part of the program too, so I'm going to ask anyone to keep their questions short. We don't want any statements of your own position or whatever, just a short question. And Commissioner Trusty, I assume will keep probably, I don't want to, she may keep her answers short too, although we would never stop her from answering. So with that said, do we have a question here? Anyone have a question? Okay, I'm going to call on you first, and then you need to identify yourself, your name and who you're with, and then ask a short question.
Sure, thanks. Dave Shepardson from Reuters. I want to ask you about Chairman Carr's comments yesterday about Disney and ABC affiliates. He said, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And raise the specter that the FCC could take action either by fining or taking action to the licenses of affiliates if they didn't pull Jimmy Kimmel's show off the air. Do you think, and there's been some criticism on both sides of the aisle, do you think that's an appropriate action by the chair? And how do you square that with the First Amendment rights of local broadcasters? And do you also support the idea of using the public interest standard to take action against broadcasters who air programs that some might find objectionable?
Thank you for the question. So I'll say a couple of things. One, I believe firmly in the First Amendment. I think it protects fundamental freedoms that are essential to the functioning of a democratic society. Broadcasters have privileged access to spectrum, and as a result, they are expected to operate in the public interest. As we saw yesterday, Nexstar and Sinclair made a business decision to remove or at least suspend the Jimmy Kimmel show because they did not believe it was in the public interest for their viewers. What the chairman said, I'm not a spokesperson, I'll defer to him to further explain that, but under the law, we have a responsibility to make sure broadcasters are complying with their public interest obligations, and that's what I'm committed to doing. Okay,
we have another question. I think we've dealt with that one. So if you have a different question, ask it.
I have a slight version, an alteration of that question, very well asked. But I mean, how do you respond to people who say that it's the FCC kind of censoring or telling TV stations what they can and cannot say? I mean, people are talking about satire and what are the limits of satire. So how do you respond to those kind of concerns? And also, where do you draw the line between what you're allowed to say on television, essentially, without drawing the ire of the FCC?
Okay, thank you for that question. So, everything is evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but really I would go back to what I said before about public interest obligations that broadcasters have because of this privileged access to spectrum. And in this particular case, Nexstar and Sinclair decided to make a business decision and suspend Jimmy Kimmel because what he said was not in the public interest in their view.
Okay, I'm going to ask the last question. It's a matter of privilege, as they say. And I served at the FCC a long time ago as Associate General Counsel, and many of us here, most of us here, have been involved with the FCC. So, Commissioner Trusty, my question is this. There's a lot of discussion and debate, some would even say controversy these days, about the nature and role of the FCC in relation to the administration and its independence. You know, it was often said, and by the way, to be candid, and many of you know this, I've questioned myself for many years the constitutional status of the FCC in relation to the executive branch and the president's authority. I think the executive, we have 3 branches of government myself, but can you just comment, you've now been at the FCC and you've served on the Hill. What thoughts do you have about that relationship of the FCC and the executive branch?
Sure, thank you for that. A couple thoughts. So President Trump is the chief executive, and he is vested with all executive power in our government. As it relates to FCC commissioners, we do not have for-cause removal protections like others. And so as to whether the FCC is legally independent from the executive branch, that is tied up in courts, and they will resolve the issues there. But for my own part, as I mentioned in my speech, I'm so honored to be nominated by the President, to be confirmed by the Senate, and I'm eager to contribute to the President's agenda when it comes to a new golden age for this country and to the Chairman's Build America agenda.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for taking questions. We have a tradition here of whenever possible, having speakers answer questions, and I appreciate that very much. So now, as I said, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn to Mike O'Reilly first. And I've asked Mike and Jeff, to speak in the range of, 5 to 7 minutes. Could be in that range, I think, would be appropriate, and give reactions. And then I'd certainly offer Commissioner Trusty the opportunity, if she cared to take it, to say anything further. So, Mike, why don't you go first?
I'm gonna stand up. All right, anyone who needs to leave, I understand, okay? Former commissioner, not current. And feel free to jump in as you are interested. This is a little unique, I must admit. There is nothing in that presentation I can criticize, and that's not just because she's relatively new to the job and just provided a wonderful vision. And it's not because she's a friend, which she is. And it's not because she's highly respected, which she is. And it's not because she came from a wonderful institution, which it is. Because there's nothing I heard in there to disagree with. I love the fact that nominees come with personal stories and backgrounds that shape their views. They are athletes and musicians. Well, I am not an athlete, as you can see, and I'm not going to do any handstands up here. But they are real people making real sacrifices and commitments to set aside what they could be doing in the private sector. The commissioner would be wonderful, successful in anything she does. I mean, just look at me, and I'm 1/100th capable as she is. So there's a future to be had. I love that it's not all about party. I remember telling Tom Wheeler, some of you actually remember Tom Wheeler, some of you actually like him. Bipartisan when we can, opposition when we must. Came from a former employer of mine, and it was really important. And you see those views come through in the speech and the presentation, how they're trying to work together, even with only 3 commissioners, and really trying to work through those issues, which can be so important. You should enjoy these early days. They aren't always that way. There'll be moments when it gets a little dark and you might get a couple burns here and there. But this is an exciting time to really express where you want to go and take the direction of the agency with your partners and your colleagues as well. The FCC is a mostly collegial place. It's a wonderful institution, as the commissioner mentioned, and how the staff is just incredibly successful and capable. I absolutely love that we have a new a former congressional staffer now as part of the leadership at the agency. When I first got to the agency, they said, said the congressional staffers were ruining the structure, that we needed more lawyers or engineers or whatever. And I disagreed with that at the time. And I'm just so happy that we have someone so experienced from Capitol Hill who brings management, leadership, cooperation, commitment to duty, and the need to fight when appropriate, and a caring attitude, all combined. It's one of the best training institutions for life and work. And I love this quote. I wrote this down. Never mistake volume for value. That is really important. It reminds me of a past life. On substance, I appreciate her dedication to universal service. And the benefits that technology can bring. She's got an opportunity to see all of that firsthand. Her changes that she makes in policy will be directly reflected in what consumers can have in a moment of minutes, in a moment of years, in a moment of a decade. It'll be amazing progress the nation will make going forward. Government's the only real place where they get to care about every single American. The private sector cares about what it does. The public advocate groups care about some of those things and some people, but it's really the government that's been charged on our behalf as citizens to care about everybody. And I really appreciate her views on that point. I do think that there are some unique issues that come up with some of the technology that she mentioned, and you get to see out in the field. There are things that you can't control as a commissioner. Telemedicine and telehealth from the University of Mississippi Medical Center, wonderful. And then you run into things like cost reimbursements and healthcare insurance and opposition from doctor groups and the likewise, especially if you're walking across state lines or working across state lines. So there are issues that are outside the agency's purview that you can't control that certainly influence. Internet in schools runs into school phone policies, and resiliency and security often are driven by other agencies. Permitting is sometimes limited by the law, and universal service is limited sometimes by inertia. So there are a lot of things that the agency can do, and it has its pulse on the heart of technology, but then you have other factors that are outside your universe, and so it's important to put those things together. I also love her focus on Alaska. It's something I spent a great deal of time on, spent a number of visits to the state. I was just there a couple of months ago. It's so very, very different than the rest of our nation. I like to consider it, and I've made this analogy before, it's like a raisin in a bowl of grapes. It's just so unique. It's got its own flavor, and it's got its own challenges. It's the only place I can imagine that I will be in that the mode of transportation, the most popular one, is by plane over car. In some places, you have Fairbanks is different than Juneau than Anchorage. It's so very, very different, and the solutions must be very different. And we not try to pigeonhole Alaska into what we're doing elsewhere, and try not to take advantage of what's given to Alaska for everybody else. So I wanted to thank Commissioner Trusty for her willingness to take on the challenge of the commission and to really express my appreciation for her well thought out views on really the principles and approach to communication policy. So that's what I had after listening to her great comments.
Well, the volume and value comment is important for people thinking about putting some automated comments in the record maybe, so let's try to remember not to do that and overwhelm the commissioner and all their staff who have to go through that. But first of all, thank you, Free State. Thank you, Commissioner Trusty, for having me here. I'm not a former commissioner, so maybe not as insightful as Mike was, but I'm happy to jump in and give a few thoughts here and there. And the first thing I want to point out is I really do agree on the point about framing it as universal connectivity. We really do need to make sure everyone understands that this isn't something that is a luxury anymore. It's something we need. And to Commissioner Trusty's credit, she was very clear about how we go about doing that. And part of that is things like the Universal Service Fund, making sure dollars are spent the right way, going to the right issues. But it is also a lot about deregulation, making sure broadband providers have the incentive to go to these areas that don't have coverage and can turn a profit. And a lot of that comes with permitting reforms, right-of-way access, access to spectrum, things that maybe aren't as great in the headlines, but are very critical to getting people connected online. And I think another point is, yes, there's a lot of really interesting applications like healthcare and different services. But right now, we have a technological boom in this country, and we're going to need our networks to keep up with that. We've got so many new technologies that are developing. People are going to be generating video, sharing videos. Traffic's going to increase. So the more we can do to make sure that people across the country have access to the internet is going to be critical, because that's going to be the economies of the future. And I am excited to see where the commission's going to go. We've got a lot of open proceedings right now. I think it's House Energy and Commerce is looking at the Universal Service Fund. There's a lot of different activity going on this front, and I think it's an exciting time to be at the commission. On the public safety point, I think the only thing I'd really add there is just to make sure that the FCC isn't siloed. And I think the commissioner made that point very clearly as well. We need to be working with our national security partners in this. This isn't something the FCC can handle alone. It's something they shouldn't handle alone. And a lot of these things are interconnected in different industries and different parts of the government. So that's another key aspect to all of this. And finally, the last point I want to make, and just on the U.S. leadership front, is we do need to get ahead on the standard setting. We need to be involved in work. We need to involve in the ITU. We need to be involved in all these things. And we are, but it's just a matter of making sure we keep pressing that drumbeat, and we have a plan, because I think we need to make sure we as a country have an idea of where we want to go. And quite frankly, we've had some fights in the recent years about where to go, especially with spectrum. And I think keeping the focus on making more federal spectrum available to commercial operations is going to be key. And that's going to be a key challenge, but I think the commission's in a great spot to be able to influence these discussions and work with the NTIA and work with government partners to find areas where we can find and make more spectrum available. So that's mainly all I've got to say. I'm happy to be here, and I really appreciate your comments on this. It was a great event, and I wish I could just say agreed, but unfortunately Randy wanted a little bit more than that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff and Mike. Mike, I think there are a number of memorable quotes that, so far have come out of this short event. But a raisin in a bowl of grapes. Did I get that right? I wrote that down. That's a good one. So we're going to wrap up in just a moment. I want to just ask, did you hear anything that caused you to want to respond to these gentlemen here at all? Olivia?
I appreciate the reflections, and I think it's just an opportunity for everybody to work together here in this room and beyond to drive forward the agenda we have at the commission. It seems like we're all aligned. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. I'm very grateful that you came here today. Jeff just mentioned, I think, NTIA just a moment ago. By the way, if you guys like to keep a calendar far in advance, we have NTIA Administrator Ariel Roth is speaking. I think we might be back in the same room on December 2nd for lunch. So we have that going on. So now, in conclusion, Olivia, I usually like to give our speakers a token of appreciation. I always say, and this is true, Laurie can vouch for this, that and today I have a cap here, Free State Foundation cap. They cost about $8. I hope that's consistent with the FCC rules. But now that I know that you like to mow lawn so much and may even mow my lawn, this is what I wear when I'm mowing, mowing my lawn. So thank you so much. I want to give you that. And I've got one if you'll pass those for Mike and Jeff as well. Okay. Well, thanks to all of you for being here. It's great to see all of you, and we'll look forward to the next one. And just join with me one more time in thanking Commissioner Trusty.